have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
I stood there on the tarmac watching you check your watch.
The chaotic and deadly U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan stunned Americans and the world and cost the lives of 13 U.S. soldiers.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been caught at the border and then released into the United States.
An Afghan national is in custody today after being accused of plotting an election day terrorist attack. The suspect entered the U.S. on a special immigrant visa.
Gut-wrenching new details in the murder of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. The illegal immigrant suspect, who cops say committed the heinous murder, is a Venezuelan national who crossed the unsecured southern border back in 2022.
2 men investigators say are in the country illegally from Venezuela are charged with capital murder in the death of Jocelyn Nungaray.
A 5th illegal immigrant accused of attacking 2 New York City police officers over the weekend showed no remorse or regret.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Only 18% say the economy is in excellent or good condition. US inflation has hit a new 40-year high, increasing by 9.1% over the financial year.
The cost of homes have spiked. Home buyers need to earn 80% more than they did in 2020 to afford a house.
Were you the last person in the room? Yes.
Do you believe voters are attributing all of the disastrous things that have happened to Kamala?
What do you mean?
So do you think that voters are actually ascribing all of the issues we've had in the last 4 years to Kamala, or do you think they think that she's going to be different than Biden? Do they see that it's not going to be any different? It may actually be worse.
Okay, I'm going to say it. I know y'all going to get mad at me. There are millions of Americans who believe her, and unfortunately, millions of those millions look like me and you, right? Because she's a black woman. So they are buying into that. They are running, lock, stock, and barrel with that. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter how unintelligent she is. It doesn't matter how she's been in the office with Biden and has put forth nothing that would support this community that she claims to be a part of. None of that matters. It doesn't matter about her policies that she supported with all these illegals coming in, taking over Chicago, New York, places where many people that look like me, now they don't have the resources for their own children. None of that matters. All that matters is that she is claiming to be a black woman.
So, I mean, the reason why she responded the way that she responded to that question is because otherwise, if she said, no, I would do something different, it would require thinking.
Right.
And it would require her to say what she would have done differently. But she can't think of anything. Because then she would have to go into it and explain how she would have handled the economy differently, how she would have handled the border differently, or the pullout from Afghanistan differently. No, that would require a lot of thinking. And that was like, when you're like bombing your interview, like an employer interview, and they ask you, have you ever had a conflict with your previous employer or employees? Can you tell us about that? No, I never had a conflict.
I think Yana is right. One of the things I think is she's scared to death that someone's going to ask her a follow-up question. And we saw that during the vice presidential debate with JD and Tim. But for people who have not done any substantive interviews, and even like The View is not substantive. I mean, they would ask her how to spell her first name and clap like sea monkey. She got it right. You know what I mean? But having someone ask you a follow-up question to something that's your closely held belief should be easy, especially when you want to be the most powerful person on the planet.
Right.
It should be easy.
Yeah.
And here we are, and we're listening to her babble an answer to a question that she had a week ago.
What, 24 days, 23 days, something like that?
Less than a month, guys.
Yeah,
less than a month. We got to get the word out. That's why our channel is important to do these things. Please like, share, and subscribe if you have not done so already. We have to get the word out. We know mainstream media is not going to do any investigating. They are not here to be unbiased. They are here to be a propaganda tool for Kamala Harris and the Democrat Party. We got to push back. And
if anything, Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had.
Sonny Holston asked if Kamala could sit next to her, thinking that if she had two of them, Kamala and her sitting side by side, they'd actually equal a black woman. You know, Sonny did say she asked the producers if they could sit Kamala next to her. So, you know, they both want to be black so bad. And they say, if you sit us next to each other, we will equal a whole black ass woman.
Kamala, and I'm calling you Kamala because for all of those who are mispronouncing it, I want you all to know how to say it.
I'm Anita Horgarth.
Buck melanoma. Molly Russell's wart. Not her wart. Not her wart. I'm the wart. She's my tumor. My growth.
Right now, there is a monster storm barreling towards my state of Florida, a place that's still reeling from Hurricane Helene. Trump is lying, claiming that the Biden administration is intentionally withholding aid from the areas where Republicans live, and that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants. Ironically, that is something he did in 2019. What do you think the effect of these lies are, and why is he doing this?
Well, it's profound, and it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness. So lives are literally at stake right now. I traveled to Georgia and to North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. In Georgia, I met a woman who, just days earlier, her husband was killed in their home by a fallen tree. Days later, I met with her and her daughter. You can imagine the pain, the shock that they are still in about what they experienced, what they witnessed. I mean, we're talking about real human beings and their lives, and them losing everything. Everything. This woman lost her husband, her child lost her father. People are losing their home with no hope of ever being able to reconstruct or return. And the idea that somebody would be playing political games for the sake of himself, but this is so consistent about Donald Trump. He puts himself before the needs of others. I fear that he really lacks empathy on a very basic level to care about the suffering of other people and then understand the role of a leader is not to beat people down, it's to lift people up.
Absolutely.
Especially in a time of crisis.
Never her.
She's
my
so
Lord,
whiny.
Very nasally.
It's painful.
It's painful. And real human beings, like babies in the womb, are they human? You say they're not human, right? You're talking about sucking them out by vacuum, but you want to talk about real human beings. Shelley, what did you think about that?
She's insufferable. And unfortunately, we have to talk about her because she's right. There are real people who have been harmed by these storms and words. So, but she is making this about her with this faux, you know, it's these are real people. And she's sickening. Sickening. I mean, no, first of all, let me tell you why. Even if, let's say Donald Trump was lying about FEMA funds, right? Let me tell you why they are making this an issue. FEMA, like any other bureaucracy, is so bloated. They have so many different programs that they do give money to illegals out of some of those programs, which are ultimately funded by taxpayers. So the problem is the transparency. There is none. So Americans don't know where their money is really going, when, and to whom. We don't know those things because things are so, what I call, governmentally laundered with our money. So maybe if we had transparency to see where every dollar that was allocated and how it was spent, we wouldn't have room to make up lies if that's what you're saying these are. But Karine Jean-Pierre, KJP, said it herself that in 2020, FEMA funds were diverted or given to illegals.
Yeah.
a group of senators have gotten together and sent a letter to the White House in anticipation of the White House asking for yet more money. And in part, the letter says Congress has appropriated over $30 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars to FEMA for fiscal year 2024. Your administration has spent over $650 million on FEMA's border-related programs in fiscal 2024.
Who's coming to the border? What does that mean?
Since taking office, the Biden-Harris administration has spent around $1.5 million $1.5 billion with a B dollars on FEMA's border-related programs, the senators wrote to Harris and Biden. The problem that the senators are having is they want an accounting. Show us where the money is. And you know, when you say that the former President Trump is lying about how slow aid has been, you know, Kamala the Mamala didn't show up until a couple of days later, right? And I don't really blame them for not taking Biden. He could wander off and you'd never see him again, mudslide or something would happen. But for her, you would think she'd be ready boots on the ground.
No.
You would think she'd be, the Mamala? Oh, I think she'd be there. Of course not. If you're watching that clip and you saw her body language and she's hunched over and she's going through all these emotions, if you look into her dead eyes, you can tell that she's lying. She shakes her head no while she's saying something affirmative and shakes her head yes when she's saying something negative. Her body language calls her out every single time. And I'm going to tell you, never her, under any circumstances. Never her.
Yeah. She has a really weird body language. Really weird. It's like, I don't think she has any empathy. That's just how it sounds to me, because she overplays the emotional language, but there's no feelings there. She just knows she has to say those things. They told her that she has to appear like she cares, but it's just so obvious that she doesn't.
FEMA gives the money to the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security funds the programs. So you know how Democrats play with words. Technically, FEMA's not directly giving them the money. They're funneling it through other organizations.
Government money laundering.
Like they need housing, they need food, whatever it is.
Well, they had housing where they were. You know, I'm all, if we're going to spend emergency management money on irregular, illegal, aliens, immigrants, migrants, whatever they're going to be this week, I don't have a problem with the black van picking them up, putting them on a plane, and taking them back to where they were before. You know, I don't have anything against people who come to this country looking for a better life, but there is a process that you have to follow. And when you cut the line, you make the people who've been waiting in line angry and devalue that process. And it's not fair. No. It's inherently not fair. You wait 10 years?
Every year, and I say every year, I mean every year, October the 1st is the federal fiscal year, right? So technically right now we are in federal fiscal year 2025.
Yes.
Every year, money is allocated for all sorts of programs, agencies, you know, directors, all kinds of things, grants, whatever you want to call it. And every year, what's being done is that Congress will allocate money, and that money is spent on one thing, but then it's backfilled during a year because they always need more. They need, you know, continuing funds, things like that. This is why I say most of our government, our agencies need to be gone.
They're bloated.
Big government, they're bloated. They are fatter than the American people.
You think about how much we pay in taxes. You know, our income is taxed, and then the things we buy are taxed, and then later on we get some extra taxes. And if you live in Maryland, there's taxes about your taxes. So, you know, we get taxed a lot. And there are some people who feel like, okay, that tax money goes for roads and schools and great programs and things that we love that makes us uniquely American. And that's kind of true, but a lot of that money goes to agencies whose mission is to study a mission for another agency.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So things grow exponentially. I'm all about people having great careers and living a wonderful life. I just don't feel like we have to fund it with public dollars. When you take a look at what's happening in North Carolina with Hurricane Helene, the top people who are helping are private charities. Go ahead.
Immigrants of any kind should not be getting any public assistance.
I agree.
I don't understand why we need to give any money to any immigrants.
Legal or illegal?
Of course. Legal immigrants never, like, I came here as a legal immigrant. My parents came here as legal immigrants. We came here to work.
Right.
And make money. I mean, we all know how immigrants do struggle because they come here and they have to, find a cheaper place to live, live in a small place, as a big family. That is normal.
It's normal for Americans to struggle too.
Right. Yeah. But that is a normal experience for an immigrant because immigrants come here for opportunities.
Right.
Opportunities to make money.
Exactly.
Not to receive money. They didn't pay into the system to receive the money.
I see what you're saying.
And we pay into it, and if I needed it, I couldn't get it.
First of all, say that.
That's something that's not really brought out much.
Like what? I mean, okay, we have the refugees. There is a category that of charitable, programs that America has for refugees. And refugees do get refugee assistance because they came from a place where they couldn't live. They literally could not live.
Right.
Like they had war, famine, whatever it is. They can't go back there. An immigrant who came here for economic opportunities, who actually is safe back in his country, maybe there's, just life is not as
they want it.
Yeah, not perfect, but they're not gonna die over there. We don't owe them anything.
Right.
Yeah, that's very true.
Agreed.